For more on the investigation now, we want to bring in Ron Hosko. He's the CBS News security analyst and former FBI assistant director. So, Ron, we know that Hodgkinson was a Bernie Sanders supporter. He volunteered for his campaign. Clearly, he was anti-GOP. We can see it on his social media page, on his Facebook page. He was very upset about the election. But the question still remains, why now? What happened now to trigger him into these actions? From your experience, what's the FBI doing to find out that answer?
Well, a number of things. Beyond this, just looking at what he posted on social media, looking at the changes in what he posted and what he might have said on social media, to see if there is a progression of activity that is either louder, more threatening, and then to map that against what else is going on in his life. So we've heard that he lived in this house in Illinois. He had a wife. They'll be talking to the wife. I'm sure they've spoken to her already to understand what's gone on in his personal life that maybe was in decline over the last year, 6 months. Was it loss of income? Was it conflict on his job? Was it marital strife? What other parts of his personal life were kind of walking him toward the edge? And then, of course, they'll be looking in his medicine cabinet. I would strongly suspect, as we see in a lot of active shooter investigations, there is a connection to depression and to other forms of mental illness. So looking in his medicine cabinet, talking to a doctor, a prescriber, to find out why these medicines, going deeper with that doctor or that prescriber, and then trying to determine whether he was taking those medicines and whether the lack of medication may have had an impact on this outcome.
Is this pretty clear to you, Ron, that this was a premeditated move?
Boy, it sure looks like it. I mean, certainly this is not accidental. You know, I think there's serious questions as to why did he end up in Alexandria, essentially living out of his van for the last couple of months. What drew him there? What did he see? Of course, the FBI will be looking at that internet search history. What was his trigger and what brought him here? But quite clearly, he found the targets that he despised so much. So they will be looking to connect those dots up and see how deliberative was this, how long did he plot this, how long did he perhaps lay in wait for the most opportune time. And quite clearly, he found it yesterday, but for two heroes.
And to talk more about that, I mean, how much do you think, we've had a couple of congressmen point out that they interacted with him as they were leaving the practice field there, and both of them really answered this very specific question of, are those Dems or Republicans out there playing? Do you think that their answers really potentially played a role in him following through with this?
I think so, based on what we've heard to date. You know, he was anti-Trump, anti-Republican, anti-Steve Scalise. Whether he knew Steve Scalise from a picture that he had searched out, whether he knew his intended first target by seeing him on the internet or some other location. But, you know, if he was really stalking this group, he could have had an opportunity, probably in a one-on-one situation on the street. He talked to others. He could have perhaps harmed one person, but here he was in an environment where these folks were relatively confined. And again, but for two Capitol Police special agents returning fire, this was going to be a potential shooting gallery and much more deadly.
So listen, Ron, also I want to ask you about his weapon of choice, this M4 carbine, if that's exactly what it was. But what does that say about the shooter?
Well, you know, look, you can hurt somebody, you can kill somebody with a handgun. And certainly in this environment where he could have walked up into the dugout and asked the players, do you guys play here often? Do you practice here often? And just engage them in a conversation, and done great harm with a handgun. But there is a certain fearsome impact of a long weapon being shot at you. Very often, and we haven't heard how many rounds he fired from that weapon. It sounds like it was a semi-automatic long gun. So basically one round for every pull of the trigger. We don't know how many total rounds he had with him, but it certainly is an indication that he meant to do great harm.
Ron, just really quickly here, do you think there is a conversation going on within the Capitol Police to up security for more of our politicians while they're away from Capitol Hill?
Yeah, I do. 6 years ago, I was the agent in charge in Washington, D.C. when Gabby Giffords was shot in Tucson. And we had repeated meetings with Capitol Police, with the sergeants at arms for the House and the Senate. And really the goal was, what do we do better? How do we make sure information is seamlessly shared? And then how do you predict when, if you look at his social media posts, nothing in there is going to predict, an attempt to kill a large amount of people. It's an angry man, but not more than that, and likely not to be prosecuted in any respect. So how do you pick that needle out of a haystack? Because there's a lot of this negativity flowing into the Capitol every day. How do you find that one and defeat that threat?
All right, Ron Hosko for us. Thank you so much.